I despise that adage of, don't judge a book by its cover, but it's like, shut up, you all do. Everyone, literally everyone who buys a book judges a book by its cover, unless it's like, I'm going to buy the newest book by Stephen King and I don't care how it looks. And Stephen King has some pretty shitty covers.
Hello, folks, and welcome to Author Adjacent, a show about the journey from hobbyist writer to professional author. I'm your host, Michael Vadney, author of Crownfall, a noble dark fantasy. But today, I am sitting with returning guest, Adrian M. Gibson, author of Mushroom Blues, A Murder Most Fungal, and The Book of Spores.
Well, editor
Welcome
of the
back
Book
to the
of
show,
Spores,
Adrian.
and author of one of the stories in the anthology.
That is true. It is an
Yes.
anthology. There's many stories in it.
It's many. It's a
You're just
panoply of fungi.
a panoply. Wow,
Yeah.
I haven't heard that word possibly ever. That might be a new one for me. I'm
The
gonna
first,
have to look it up later.
yeah. Okay, perfect. We're already off to a good start. I'm teaching you something new. But thank you for
It's a
having
great
me
start
back.
for us today.
Thank you for having me back, buddy.
Of course, man. Thanks for coming. So last time we had you on last week as we were talking about A Murder Most Fungal, your new book that's coming out real soon. What's the exact date on that again?
June 16th. The knives are out.
Ooh, that's very exciting. But today I wanted to bring you back on because we're going to be talking about a subject that's kind of near and dear to your heart, actually, which is book design. Something that you have really launched in the past, year and a half,
Not
into doing
even,
yourself.
I mean, I started doing it with Mushroom Blues, so it was like, this was my first experiment with it, basically. So Felix Ortiz did the artwork, but then I did the cover design, as well as the full interior design for that as well. And then I was just doing a couple random projects here and there just to help friends out. And then last August, MJ Kuhn, my co-host on SFF Addicts and a dear friend of ours, was just like, hey man, you should just launch it. And so I did. I launched a freelance book design service in August, and since then I have, including Michael's Crownfall, I did the cover design and interior design for that
book.
beauty
You did
right
such
there.
a good job on it.
Thank you. So including that, I've done about 15 projects since August, and have been hired on at Grimdark Magazine, basically as their project manager, project director for their line of novellas. So that's kind of I don't know, almost like an actual traditional publishing gig, which is kind of crazy to see the trajectory of this just since August. It's only been about 10 months at this point, 9 months.
Yeah, man, that's amazing to go from starting there and you're already having now a position with Grimdark Magazine. I actually wanted to start at a real base level for people who might not know what we're talking about, who aren't familiar with the term of book design. What exactly is book design, and how does it differ from cover art or illustration?
Okay, so book design. So I will show you Mushroom Blues as an example. I can also show you The Queen of Days by Greta Kelly. I'm just going to quickly pimp my co-host books. And Among Thieves by MJ Kuhn. Actually, I'm going to grab the hardcover of Mushroom Blues because it's extra party. So on a basic level, let's say you've hired an artist to do your cover art, which you should always hire human artists to do your cover art, please. This is the artwork for Mushroom Blues. So with that artwork, which was given to me by Felix Ortiz, I paid him for it, of course. He didn't just give it to me. That's all I received. Now, there are some artists who also do the design aspect. And the design aspect is taking that art and adding typography to it, the title of your book, your name as an author, the spine text, the back cover copy, which is, every book that you find on a bookshelf will have all of these things. But then there are also really important little details like the ISBN code, which is basically how your book is registered within the global system that tracks and organizes books. So that code is just one small detail that's really important. And it's if you don't have that, you cannot sell your book on Amazon KDP. You cannot sell your book in a bookstore, none of that stuff without something as simple as that. But on a broader level, design is everything that is not the art. The typography, the ISBN and the ISBN code, the back cover copy, which is the synopsis, the blurb of your book, telling people what is this book actually about. Add to that if you're doing a dust jacket, you can have your author photo and your author bio. You can add little extra details in there, like here's my social media handles and that kind of stuff. But on a basic level, it is everything on a cover that is not your art. Your art is just the foundation, but you still have to build the structure on top of that. Title of your book, author name, back cover blurb. Maybe you want to throw some quotes from other authors in there, or reviews or things along those lines. And then really important information like the ISBN code, and being able to signify to readers and booksellers, this book is legit. It is available on these platforms. You can actually buy it with money here. That's the kind of stuff that turns your art into an actual cover, and turns your project into an actual product. So that's kind of like my encapsulation of what cover design is. But then you get inside the book, and then it becomes a whole other story. So then you have, here's the actual story text itself. But then there's, for my part, I love to do graphics and stuff along those lines, things like that, title pages, really important information, again, like a copyright page. Those are just things that essentially help legitimize your book, not only on the ISBN registry, but also within a copyright registry, and kind of securing your book within especially US copyright law, let alone other countries, right? And then you have the book itself, the actual story, the text, that fun stuff that people put their eyes on and read and understand words. All of that is design, where the text is, the size of the font, the spacing between the letters, the spacing between the lines, where the title of the book is, or the author name, the page numbers, all of that kind of stuff is also involved in book design. That kind of stuff specifically you would call typesetting or interior formatting. Interior formatting kind of encapsulates everything that's in your interior, from the front cover content all the way to the back cover content. Typesetting is specifically, this is the font that the designer chose, and that's how the story is presented to people, but then also how they've spaced it. Sometimes you pick up a book and you're like, wow, these letters are so they're smaller, like a mass market paperback, right? But also it's just like really condensed, right? And there are literal genre cues that come from how a book is typeset. So if you want me to get into this now, I can.
No, let's go for it.
Okay. So
the floor is yours.
Go to your bookshelf and pick up an epic fantasy, and then pick up a thriller. Compare those two books. Okay, I've got.
All right.
Let's see.
Hold on, I got Dean Koontz.
Yeah, that's a good thriller. That's a perfect thriller. Yeah.
Here we go. Perfect. I got Dean Koontz right here, and I got Cello's Gate.
Perfect. Those are good examples. I've got Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, and then I've got The Black Tongue Thief by Christopher Buehlman. So
nice.
we've got our spread essentially. Okay, now I'm going to show you side by side Dark Matter versus The Black Tongue Thief.
I'm going to follow along at home.
Yeah. You get your books, follow along at home. It's an interactive experience. Okay. Now, do you see the difference between those two?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so which one do you think is the thriller on my screen?
Oh, on your screen. Oh,
yeah.
Look. On your screen?
Is it this one,
I would guess,
or is it this one?
Your right hand, I believe.
This one?
Yes.
No, so this is the thriller right here.
Really?
Yeah, but can you see?
Is it because it has more space?
So the thriller has more space to it. Do you see how much farther apart the lines are of the thriller versus the epic fantasy?
Yeah.
But also the size of the font itself?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why do they make those decisions for those?
Pacing. So from like a genre level, even though a thriller might be 80, 90,000 words, they will space it out like that to give it more page count, to make it more worth I think I froze for a second. There was my freeze. So they space it out, to take advantage of a little bit of extra page count to kind of bulk it out a little bit. But at the same time, they're using the typography itself, the font and the spacing and everything that goes into the typesetting to essentially direct the reader experience. So the reader is going to, page by page, read faster in a thriller because the words are bigger, the spacing is wider, and therefore they're going to get the psychological signal that, oh my God, this book is so fast and so tense and so thrilling because I'm turning the pages, literally turning the pages faster, right? Whereas in epic fantasy, this isn't even the best example. Like you look at like a Brandon Sanderson book and it's meaty, It's already like 1,000+ pages, but also look at how the font is laid out. And that's because a fantasy is more about world building. It's more about immersing you in the experience. It wants you to linger on the page a little bit more. And therefore, you spend that time more slowly engaged with the words and the page. And you feel like the experience is more immersive on a world building level, whereas thrillers are engaging you on a pacing and attention level, just by the way the text is laid out on the page. So you can tell genre-wise, these are conventions that are made about how the font choices are made, how the typesetting is done for a particular genre, and what those choices say about what the publisher or the author, in the case of self-publishing, wants to evoke in the reader experience. So just from typesetting, just from the way the words appear on the page, can dictate how you experience a book.
Oh, I love that. It's almost like the way different narrators can really change how you ingest a book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there are some people who it's like when it comes to audiobook, they prefer like 1.5 or 2 times, or if they're insane, like 3 times speed.
Chipmunk speed.
But the narrator delivery and the speed at which that particular reader listens to their audiobooks again dictates the reading experience. They might feel like, oh man, I burned through that series, right? Because you literally did. It's like you listened to it faster. Maybe the delivery of the narrator was faster. And so the reader experience in terms of an actual physical book is, a lot of it is dictated A, by the choices that the author makes and how they tell their story, but B, how the designer has designed their book from the inside out, using the cover to essentially establish expectations about what the reader can expect within that story. So we can get into like reader expectations, because I think that's a huge part of design. But say if someone looks at this cover and they're like, okay, that feels like fantasy, right? It's a little bit kind of graphic and comic-y. And so maybe there's a little bit of a messaging about the dark comedic elements of this particular story. Then they read the back cover and they read the blurb about the book. That's the second expectation that is set for the reader. And then once the reader actually opens the book and starts reading the story, in conjunction with how the formatter has laid out the words on the page, that is the third sort of pillar of this expectation. We can call it a stool, a three-legged stool. But if that third leg of the stool does not match the first two, that's going to result in a bad reader experience. And what that's essentially going to do is, like, this person came into it with these expectations built up through a cover and the cover design and the synopsis, the blurb, and those two expectations were not met within the story itself. That's where a lot of 1 stars on Amazon and Goodreads come from. Is, I thought this book was going to be this and this, and it ended up being that. And so I was disappointed, right? And so design and in conjunction with cover art do a huge amount of heavy lifting right off the bat to communicate to a reader, this is what this book is about. Mushroom Blues is a weird sci-fi fantasy murder mystery. And if this cover does not communicate that, then I have done my job poorly. But the hope is that someone looks at that cover and they're like, okay, here, like, it's kind of like a buddy cop. There are two police officers. There's a police car. One of them's smoking a cigarette. One of them's a woman. One of them's a weird mushroom person. Those are setting expectations. The title, Mushroom Blues, and the way that I did the typography is also helping set that expectation. But the whole point of doing an effective cover, and especially in self-publishing, it requires very conscious effort on the part of the author, because you are the person who is hiring the artist. You are the person who is hiring the designer. Do not shirk on that stuff. Think about it. Think about, what is your book? How do you want to message it? How can you find the right people to create and design the cover that will best exemplify the story that you've written? The most disappointing thing to me, and I talked a lot with my friend Jeff Brown about this, because he's an amazing cover artist, but he's also a really good designer. Like, his typography is top notch. Like, look at all the stuff that he's done for, like, the Broken Binding, for instance. So Jeff and I have had this conversation a lot, where the most disappointing thing is incredible cover art that is just completely undone by terrible design and typography. Even like, that is even more disappointing than this person got terrible cover art and good typography, or even terrible art and terrible typography. The worst thing for us as artists and as designers is like, oh my God, that cover art had so much potential and it's just ruined by bad design. And so it's really important that authors are conscious about how they want to communicate their book, and to do their due diligence in finding humans who can create a cover and typography that will evoke the essence of their book, because that messaging is everything. If someone sees your book on social media, they're seeing your cover. That's the thing that is and I hate to use this term, but it's like, it's manipulating their mind essentially. It's playing with their psychology such that they, oh man, I've seen this cover everywhere, right? That's why it's so cool to see a cover reveal happen. And Mike, I know you experienced this for the first time, where it's just like, boom, 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 boom. My cover is like, people message you like, dude, I see your cover everywhere today. That kind of pervasive marketing is invaluable, and it's free. And so if you can have a really solid cover that people look at and they're like, oh my God, like, I need to see what this book is about, that cover has done every part of its job effectively. It is catching people's attention enough that they linger on it. Then all of its component parts are working together to message to that reader, this is the indie epic fantasy you want to read next, or this is like going to be the coolest, YA fantasy or YA dystopia or whatever, right? And so do your due diligence, put in the time, put in the research, look at the books that you love, look at the cover art, look at the design, and kind of like even go onto Amazon. And I know you used, what's the website that shows you like all the analytics and stuff? Oh, what is it called? No, they're like a
Kindlepreneur?
No, there's like one that's specifically about analytics, but it also shows you thumbnails. Let me see.
Oh, I don't think I've used that one actually.
Oh, what is it called again? It's gonna just like completely. I'll figure it out.
I believe in you. We'll be like 3 questions later, and then you'll be like, "Son of a bitch."
Yeah, but there are like platforms that you can use, and you can also just go to your genre on Amazon and just look through all the thumbnails, but like look at them as thumbnails, and realize that like a good cover can communicate its message at variable sizes. So, You know, it's like, here's my cover back here as a thumbnail, but then here it is up close, and you can kind of like, you can read this from like all the way back, you know? So it's like, how legible is your title at the size that Amazon presents your book cover at? How readable is your art at the size that Amazon thumbnails present them at? And this goes for social media too, because you're shrinking your cover down into a sort of like a more consumable, phone friendly format. That means people will not be seeing this book at its full detail in that particular situation. And so just look at the different covers that are in your genre, see what they're doing, kind of maybe there's like a through line of, okay, all these covers are kind of riffing on the same approach. This typography is really popular right now. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to copy it kind of like detail by detail, but you can draw influence from that such that when you find the professionals who you want to work with, you can give them a detailed briefing of like, this is what I want for the art, as you communicate that to the artist, giving them reference images, giving them basically just like a 3 to 5 page art brief of like, here's what my book is about. Here are the genres. Here are reference images for what I want on the cover. Here's examples of your work that I absolutely love. Here are color palettes that I kind of want to go with for this particular project. And then kind of approaching it in a similar way with the designer. Not necessarily like you have to give them a brief, but here's the finished art. This is what I have for you to work with. This is what this book is about. This is what I want the typography to evoke. This is what the title is. This is the series name. This is the space that we have to work with, right? Such that you don't have such a long title that like 3/4 of your page needs to be reserved for just the title of your book, right? So these are all things that authors can take into consideration that will go such a long way, because it's like, you've invested so much time in this story already. Don't just like break your ankle at the finish line on your own because you didn't put in the effort. And maybe financials are kind of like a reason for you to not be able to invest in the art or the design that you want. Figure out alternatives. Maybe you don't release your book this year. Maybe you release it next year and you're able to save up the money in order to invest in these things and do it properly. Because if you put out a book, yes, self-publishing, you do have the benefit of being able to change your cover down the line. But I know a lot of authors who've had to do like clean relaunches, you know, and it costs more money in the long term. And usually your hardest hitting opportunity is that first launch. So if you have to do a relaunch, that's going to be more money, and it's going to have to essentially, you know, put aside all of the effort that you put in with that first launch in order to make that second one happen, you know?
Yeah. It's got to overcome
Yeah.
all of the impressions that
Yep.
you've made already with that story.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
don't break your ankle at the finish line. Like, you know, and this isn't even like you tripping. This is just you just sitting down and like snapping your ankle yourself. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah,
you
cover
are
is
you
just
yourself
so
doing
important.
doing a disservice. Yeah.
Yeah, the cover just does like 90% of the sales work for you.
Yep.
I was talking with, oh my God, why am I blanking? Several other people about this, but it always comes up when we start talking about covers about just how important it is
Probably like
that
Andy
your cover
Peliquin.
looks. Yeah, I was definitely talking with Andy about this.
Yep.
Where it's just, it does so much work for you because most of the time you're not going to be there to sell your book.
Yep.
Your cover is what's going to sell your book. And I remember when you and I were working on this one together, we started going over like, you started asking me like, what covers do I like? And I immediately pointed you to the Unhewn Throne trilogy.
Yeah,
and I'm
Brian
like,
Staveley.
These are,
Yep.
yes, these are my favorite covers of all time. And we took a lot of inspiration for that, for talking to Katarina and getting the art done with her, and then you doing the lettering and all the design with it. And I can't tell you enough how many times I'll put the cover up on social media or do some kind of promo for it, and people just go, that cover is amazing. And people want to buy the book just because they don't know what it's about.
Yep.
other than what the cover tells them it's about.
Exactly.
And there's so much information that you can convey. Like, a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Yeah.
And
it's
nowhere is
kind
that
of
more true than here.
It's really unfortunate because it's like I despise that adage of, don't judge a book by its cover, but it's like, shut up, you all do. Everyone, literally everyone who buys a book judges a book by its cover, unless it's like,
100%.
I'm going to buy the newest book by Stephen King and I don't care how it looks, right? Yeah. And Stephen King has some pretty shitty covers.
None of them have really blown me away, honestly, for Stephen King. But he's big enough that he can do that. And people, you are not Stephen King.
Right. Most people, like 99% of authors, do not have the name cachet to be able to sell a book regardless of how the cover looks. Everyone else, every traditional publisher is putting together an art and design department who is essentially, they have multiple people, a team who is doing all of the jobs that I do from cover to interior, right? So there's an individual person who's doing the typesetting. There's an individual person who's doing the cover typography and design. There's an individual person who's doing the interior graphics and interior design, right? So think about how much effort a publisher puts into this. And even publishers fumble all the time. There are some traditionally published covers where I'm like, that looks like ass, But there are people making intentional decisions behind the scenes in order to make that cover a reality, right? And the unfortunate reality is that many of the books that fail in this industry fail because the cover did not convey the book in an effective way. Whether it's that book on a shelf, whether it's that book on Amazon or on social media or what have you, sometimes like an actual story is just kind of meh, and that's fine. But there are a lot of other factors that went into making that book a success and pleasing the sales department, right? And yet it didn't. It flopped. Something went wrong, right? And I think a lot of that has to do with consumer choices based around first impressions of how something looks. You go out to buy clothes, you look at the clothes, and if it doesn't please you, you're not going to buy it, right? The second interaction you have with clothes is like, how does it feel? Like, I put it on, how's the fit? What's the fabric like? That kind of thing. That's like your blurb, your synopsis and whatever. And then someone invests money in it and you take it home and you wash it, maybe it shrinks and you're like, oh, well, this is a shitty shirt now, or like the fit loosens after like a handful of washes and you're not satisfied with it, or the graphic starts to peel off, right? That's the story. That's the stuff that you as an author have to manage on a narrative level. But as a business person and as an entrepreneur who's trying to sell a product, you need to put yourself in the shoes of, okay, I'm out of the author realm. I'm now a creative director. I am now a business manager and an accountant. I'm also a marketer, and like all these different things have to kind of coalesce into this really difficult role of, this book is done. Now, how do I package and sell it? And the best thing you can do for that packaging and selling is making sure the package is good. If the package is terrible, it's not going to sell. Maybe it will sell. Who knows? Maybe you're just like an amazing marketer and can just, promote the hell out of a really crappy cover. Good for you. I'm very proud of you. I don't know how you do it, but the best thing you can do as a self-published author is to ensure that your packaging is as top quality as possible. And I've talked with friends about this, that like the quality of indie covers now is unbelievably good, but you do not have to break the bank in order to make that happen. You know what I mean? Like, Michael and I know how much he paid for his cover, and it doesn't necessarily mean like I have to go without food in order to make this happen. There are things you can do and artists you can find who may not necessarily be as established in their careers or just happen to have really affordable prices. But you can make it happen and not have to spend like more than $1,000, you know? So just put in the effort on that front and it will make everything else easier.
100%. Like, so much of book cover, like, design and the art and stuff like that, you want this artistic expression and image, but really that's when you need to put your business hat on, because that's what's going to make your book successful or not, is the thing that convinces someone to pick it up and read it. Because it doesn't matter what's on the inside. You have to convince them to pick it up first. Otherwise, they never get to those words. They never get to the story. They never get to feel the things that you want them to feel if you can't convince them through a glance to pick it up.
And that's it, man. You have like milliseconds. It's really crazy how fast the human brain looks at something, perceives that information, translates it into brainwaves, and makes an impulse decision based on that split second reaction, whether that is something that you like or dislike. And this is the same when you're in the dating market and you're at a bar, like a concert or something, or just in like any social situation, and you're like, you know, who do I find attractive here? So much of that is it's biological and intuitive, and so much of it is just split second reactions, you know, whether it's I like the smell of this person, like their pheromones, on like a really like weird animalistic level that most people don't think about, but it's like a lot of your attraction comes from chemicals at the end of the day. And then like the visual component, and I like the sound of that person's laugh, and I like the sound of their voice, and the cadence of how they talk, and those kinds of things all are these really split second reactions that build up to like, I'm actually attracted to this person. And it's the same thing for a book. If you're like, oh, that book is ugly as hell, you know, it's not going to invoke like a feeling of desire in you. You're not going to be like, I'm going to spend money on this thing that looks like shit. You know what I mean? So it's important for authors to, you know, maybe you, from the moment you start writing your book, you're like allocating a budget for design and art, you know. Maybe I know a lot of authors who are going like the Kickstarter route in order to fund projects and stuff as well. So there are different options that you can take: crowdfunding, saving over a period of time, or you just have the funds available. Awesome. But just put in that effort to not make your book ugly, so that people go to the party and they're like, damn, I want to pick up Crownfall. You know, it's like, I want to take Crownfall home to bed and flip those pages. That's the reaction you want from people. And it starts with the art, and it starts with the design.
Yeah. So we've really harped on the importance of all of this.
Yeah.
Now I want to get into when an author like comes to you as the designer, they have their cover art. How does the project typically begin for an author to come to you and work with you for their book?
I mean, the ideal is that they get me involved before they even get the finished art. That for me is kind of like, because there are some artists who's like, they're amazing, you know, but their art tends to work better for like end papers and things like that, where it's like on a compositional level, an artist needs to understand how a piece of artwork should be laid out in order for a designer to be able to allocate space to the necessary elements of design. So it's like, if you make your character like 90% of the cover, I'm like, I'm sorry. It's like, I'm going to slap the title on his dick. Like, what do you want me to do? You know, you have to understand that it's like, this is an essential element of this piece. Okay. So if it's a character like in Crownfall or in Mushroom Blues, I need the character to be a certain size so that they are legible to the reader, the person who's buying this product. But I don't want them taking up 90% of the cover. So for me, it really helps if I'm involved in the project from an earlier stage, in which case I can say like, okay, here are the characters. They take up about, not counting like their legs, but that's kind of like that's a workable area, right? But it's like, okay, they take up about like a third of the page. But then I have this much of the page of environmental information, background information to effectively proportion the title and all of the text information that I need to put into this thing. And some cases it's like there's going to be a cover that's a little bit of a different style. Like let's use Greta's for example, where it's like, okay, we have this kind of Venetian mask that takes up a huge portion. That's like pretty much like 50%, right? But that 50% is enough to effectively distribute the text and title, distribute the placement of the author's name, include a blurb on there, that kind of thing. Like there's a blurb from Genevieve Gornichek right here. That is the kind of stuff that it really helps to be involved with the creation process of the art. Just to be like, okay, Mike's going to send me an update from Katerina. Okay, there's enough space for me to work with up on top. There's enough space for me to work with down below. The characters take up about 1/3 of the cover. That's enough for me to work with. Sometimes there are cases where it's like there's not enough room for, okay, there's enough room for a title, but there's not enough room for the author name, for instance. And if I was involved in that process, if the author just hadn't come to me and be like, here's my art, I need design, I would have told the artist to pull it back a little bit, give me a little bit more space to work with on the bottom, and I can adjust appropriately, right? So for me, it's always really important if an author wants to work with a designer to involve them in the process a little bit earlier, such that they can give a bit of feedback to the artist about like compositional stuff. Not to say like this is how you should paint, this is how you should draw or anything along those lines, but it's like this is the space that I need to work with to do my job effectively. And from there the artist can tweak, and a lot of it just involves like, hey, pull it back, give me a little bit more environment, and I can just move it around however I need to. If it's just a front cover, awesome. Give me a little bit of wiggle room all around the border. If it's going to be like a full dust jacket or like a paperback front back kind of spread, okay, give me that appropriate space on each side such that I can kind of shift things along in order to appropriately fit it within the margins of what KDP or what these other printers need, right? Because you have to take into account, it's like, okay, here's the edge of the book. The cover went up to here. They just cut that off. And this space is called a bleed edge. And so if that bleed edge is cutting off important information, that's to the detriment of the artwork. So, for me, it's kind of like, okay, talking to an artist, be like, okay, that bit of information needs to go up here, right? Or you just pull it back such that I have a little bit of extra room around the edge, knowing that Amazon or Ingram Spark or whoever is going to cut that right off. You know what I mean? That's not where text goes. That's not where important art information goes. That shit just gets cut right off. So for me, it's really valuable to talk with the authors and the artists from the early stages, like we did, Mike. And I mean, it's good that you and I have our friendship, and Katerina and I have worked together. So it wasn't a stretch for us to have that communication, right? But if I have that, then everything else is just kind of becomes this like ripple effect of more fluid design process. So it's like, okay, I've seen how this art has developed. I get a sense for what the artist is trying to accomplish. I kind of see what the author's vision was, start thinking about different types of fonts and typography. And so it's basically like that artistic stage where the artist is working on something. I wouldn't be like, okay, you have to pay me or anything like that. It's basically like, once you deliver me finished cover artwork and you say like, I want to hire you as the designer for this, then it's just like a 50% upfront deposit, and then the other 50% upon final delivery kind of thing. And so for me, it's kind of like involve the designer from as early a stage as possible, And then when you deliver the art to them, just know that they're putting in a lot of effort. So pay them something up front. Give them that incentive to work on this project for you, such that they will follow through and get to the end and give you that delivery, and then you can pay them the rest, kind of thing. And I always have, like, I don't do contracts, but I always have like invoices and stuff like that. So it's really clear. This is what I'm doing for you. This is how much it costs. This is how much you owe at the beginning. This is how much you owe at the end, kind of thing. And so it's kind of like, be aware of that and pay the people that are working for you, because you are an entrepreneur, you're a business manager. So make sure that you are essentially establishing that professional foundation such that people are like, oh, this person's serious, like they put their money down. That's incentive for me to be like, I'm going to get that shit done. Right. On top of that, understand from the get-go, like, this is the word count of my book, such that the designer knows like how big this project is going to be, right? Tell them these are the formats that I want. Maybe you want to format the ebook yourself with Vellum, which is a one-time payment program, and you can format the ebook on your own. Or you can hire a designer to do the ebook for you as well. But then there's also the paperback. There's also hardcover. Maybe you need an audiobook, like a square artwork for your audiobook or something like that. So just be really clear about like, this is how long my book is. These are the formats that I want, such that the designer has an idea of everything that's involved in the project, and just have it all laid out at the very beginning so that there are no surprises and no missteps or freakouts along the way, being like, oh, my book is like supposed to come out in, a month or something like that, and I haven't received the hardcover files for it, for instance. So that's really important right off the get-go. And then building from there, it's just like give the final manuscript, like final manuscript to the designer. Don't give them like like an unproofed version of it or anything. It's like, this has been edited, this has been proofread, this is exactly how it's going to appear in the book, because I'm not your editor. Sometimes I will catch things, but I'm not your editor. I'm not scanning this document line by line in order to catch your typos or anything along those lines. Sometimes I do come across things and I will fix them and just let the author know, like, hey, I saw this, and fix that across all versions for you. But that's not my main job. That's just like a happy accident kind of thing. So give them the final manuscript such that they have everything that they need to work with. Because for me, my process is basically like, I'll take that manuscript and I'll make the ebook first. Because the ebook is a really good opportunity for me to find like weird formatting errors. Like, oh, this person had an indent, but they also had an extra space at the beginning of a paragraph. And my program flags that stuff. So I'll take it from there and then make a paperback, and then go through and do the whole paperback interior, because it's always going to be around like 20 to 40 pages longer than the hardcover, is about the average. And then I'll duplicate that paperback file, and then I'll do the hardcover at the end. Because the hardcover is basically like, I have all the information there. I just have to readjust the document size, and then, kind of adjust page by page to make it match that document size, kind of thing. And so that's my process. And basically what I do is, once I've finished all those things, it's like I have a final page count for the paperback, then I can do the final cover for the paperback, because I know the exact page count and therefore the exact spine width. And the same thing for the hardcover version as well. So it's like, I can't do a final cover until I have the final interior, is basically how it works. But then for a client, what I would do when I deliver all the final files is like, for your hardcover, here's the interior PDF ready to upload to Amazon or Ingram Spark or wherever. Here's the dust jacket PDF. Maybe you're doing like a dust jacket and a hardcover case, kind of like this thing, where it's like you have the hardcover case, this thing, and then you have the dust jacket. So I would provide you with those final files, and the terminology for that is basically just print ready. So the intention is that like, I give you this PDF, it's ready to print. You upload that into Ingram Spark or KDP, and you're going to get hopefully not flagged, and just, it's ready to go, ready for you to print a proof copy of it. Test to make sure everything's okay. and have that delivered to your home, go through it, make sure everything's in order such that you know this is exactly what the reader is going to receive. So I'll do the same thing for a paperback. Here's the cover, here's the interior PDF. Same thing for an ebook. Here's the EPUB, here's the cover that you can upload directly to Amazon or whichever platform you want to upload it to. And so for my part, it's kind of like I'm trying to streamline as much as possible for people, because sometimes I work with debut authors and they don't know what to do, right? And so it's kind of like, like Mike.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, here's a PDF. You upload this to Ingram Spark, and I'm going to streamline the process as much as I can for you. And even if there are hiccups, because there were hiccups with me and Mike, but like that was just like, weird Adobe InDesign shit and and stuff that was going on.
It worked out in the end.
Yeah, it worked out in the end, but that's the important thing is like we were able to troubleshoot and figure it out. And Mike was able to order proofs ahead of release such that he was satisfied with the final result and knew exactly what readers would be receiving in their hands, which is the really important thing, So my job is to basically be like, you give me your cover art, I give you everything you need to upload that book. And then when you upload it, that's when you are done with me and my design, and you start marketing. You start promoting your book, and it's launched and it goes out into the world, kind of thing. So my mantra is basically like, I want to make this as easy as possible for you to give me your art, give me your manuscript, and then make this book a reality, right? That's design for me. So it's been really satisfying to see all these books that I now have my hand in, you know what I mean? Like not just my own, but it's just like now I have well over a dozen books that I can be like, my name's on the back of that. My fingerprints are all through those pages. People are starting to recognize like the design work that I do, whether it's like cover or interior and that kind of thing. So it's really awesome for me to be able to see like these authors are able to essentially like achieve their dream, their goal of publishing a book. And I help them deliver the coolest, most beautiful version of that dream as possible.
Oh man, that is beautiful. And I will say, like, working with you was amazing through this whole process, because debut author here, definitely a nervous wreck of not knowing what goes into the black box of publishing and all that stuff. And you were amazing the whole time. Like every time I had a question, you were like, hey, this is the answer. Or if we had a decision to make, working with you was always like, hey, we got to decide this. These are your options. This is the one I recommend, and this is why. Like every step of the way was never confusing working with you. You were very transparent, and just, I will continue to toot that horn as much as I need to, because Crownfall would not be as beautiful as it is right now if it wasn't for you. And I really appreciate that. Like so many people look at it and they go, that's an indie book? I had no idea. It's so polished. It's so well put together. Like I've gotten that comment so many times.
Yeah, I love that though. I love that. But I will say, like on the flip side, like it was really great working with you too. And just as like a recommendation for someone who is both an author and a designer, I can be a control freak because I do it all, right? Like I can be a control freak about how my book looks because I'm the one designing it. If you are hiring somebody else to do your cover art, to do your design, there is a point where you have to understand, am I being too controlling and being essentially like a creative dictator as opposed to a creative director? When should I pull back a little bit and let that designer basically just be a professional and share their expert opinion with you? Like I'll just use the example of like the interior graphics for Crownfall, like the chapter headers of like gemstones and things along those lines, right? There was a point where it's like, yeah, we came up with this idea together. Yeah, it's like each character has their own particular gemstone chapter header, And that's not something where you were just like, it needs to be this kind of gem and blah, blah, blah. It's like
No.
you and I just kind of like spitballed some ideas, and that's what we landed on. And then you just let me run with it because, and it's the same thing for like every empty left page. I just threw in like a graphic of minerals and rocks and gems and stuff like that. And that was another thing where you're just like, you didn't tell me exactly which ones had to be included or anything. It was like, this is the idea we have. This is like the kind of execution that I think would work based on my experience. And you just let me run with it. And that was for me really beneficial for the sort of like fluidity of the process, because it wasn't like we came to all these choke points where it was just like, no, it has to be a specific way. And yeah, like I know you've created this world and you want the artist to portray your characters in a specific way, but there is a point where you have to understand that you are not the one creating the art, and therefore you have to be as much of a collaborator as you are as a creator, and to allow that other creator to do what they do as best as possible with your guidance, not your control.
That's such a good way to phrase it. And that is a fantastic spot for us to be wrapping up this episode, man. Oh.
Just like if I could pick up my mic just now.
I know. Just it's kind of attached to a thing, so it's hard to drop it.
It's attached to a
but,
thing. Just,
Adrian, could you tell the people where can they find you, where can they find your books, and where can they find your services?
Yeah, man. So, I mean, I am pulling back a little bit now that I've got this new job at Grimdark Magazine. But, I'll still be doing design stuff here and there. Reserved for friends. But you can find me at Adrian M. Gibson all across social media. You can check out my website, adrianmgibson.com. I've got all my book design stuff there. I've got my portfolio of different projects that I've worked on, from Kickstarters and special editions to just interiors to cover design, all of it. And my portfolio has gotten quite expansive over the last handful of months. But go check that out. You can also follow SFF Addicts, which is my podcast, at SFF Addicts Pod on social media, or you can check it out on YouTube and Spotify and video. You can also listen to it on Apple Podcasts, whatever platform you prefer. That's where my co-hosts MJ Kuhn, Greta Kelly, and I chat with a bunch of really cool authors about writing and craft and their books and all kinds of stuff. So if you like author adjacent, go check it out. We are adjacent to Michael in many ways. As well, you can find my books, Mushroom Blues, which is this one right here. That's the first book in the Hoffman Report series. You can find that on Amazon, or just anywhere you find books in hardcover, paperback, ebook, and audiobook. You can also pre-order A Murder Most Fungal, which is out, I believe, next week on June 16th. That'll be available at launch in hardcover, paperback, and ebook. And you can also pre-order the ebook right now if you want to, or pre-order signed hardcovers through thebrokenbinding.co.uk. And that's me.
Dude,
I know it's a lot of information.
No, you did great. Like, you have so much going on. It's like, oh God, I got to start the train again.
But I've gotten it down, man. I've refined it somewhat.
That was smooth.
Yeah.
Adrian, thank you for coming on to the show this week.
Thank you, buddy. I really appreciate it. And I hope all of you found that useful. Just, put in the effort. Make your books beautiful. Don't skimp on the very important details. Yeah.
You got this, folks. And remember, till next time, let's be author adjacent together.
Bye.
See ya. We did the thing, and I didn't stumble this time.
Hooray. Yeah,